This roleplay assignment for the course Scientific Methods portrays an enactment of a modern podcast featuring two scientists, Thomas Edison and his rival Nikola Tesla. The video features Khubaib Mukaddam as the host, Areeb Kazmi as Thomas Edison, and Hammad Sajid as Nikola Tesla.
Hello fam, this is Mohammad Khubaib and we're back again today with another episode of Geek Corner. Living in this modern age, everywhere around us, we see technology. What is that is lighting up these big cities? What is that is allowing science to actually move forward? Have you ever wondered that? At the most basic building block of all of this is electricity. And what better man to discuss this all with than the most famous and brilliant inventor of the 19th century, the man behind the light bulb, the most famous industrialist of all time, Mr. Thomas Alva Edison. Hello, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Khubaib, for inviting me to your show and blessing your show with your presence.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I know you guys love this show for the fiery conversations that we have. And we don't want to make this a one-sided thing, do we? On the other side of the panel, we have the arch rival of Mr. Edison here, the genius man behind the alternating current, probably the most underrated scientist of all time, Mr. Nikola Tesla, everybody. Hello, Tesla.
I'm really thankful to you, Khubaib, for inviting me to this show. I'm extremely inspired by the way you are promoting science among the youngsters through your podcast. These podcasts are really amazing. These are really informative.
Thank you, Tesla. Before we move on to our main topic for today, for the young viewers and listeners who are joining us today on this podcast, we both are celebrated scientists. So, I wanted to know what actually led you towards science. I'll go with Mr. Edison first.
Well, I think it's a beautiful question. For me, it was always the innate curiosity that I developed as a child while being exposed to the work of other scientists and inventors. As a newsboy, I was exposed to the discoveries and developments in the field of science, while as a telegraph operator, I was exposed to the electrical systems and gained more interest in them.
Mr. Tesla, the same question for you.
So, what inspired me the most to learn about science, to explore science, was this desire to learn and to know more about electricity and electromagnetism. I was always inspired by the work of Michael Faraday, of James Maxwell. They had done some excellent work on these fields. And I always had this desire, this passion to invent something to bring ideas to life in a way that the society can benefit from them.
Thank you, Mr. Tesla. So, moving on to our main argument for today, as you both must be aware. So, the main topic for today for our podcast is the war of currents, the AC versus DC argument. So, for that, I would like to ask Mr. Tesla, what do you think about all this? What's your side to the story?
What war, Khubaib? There was never a war. My alternating current was far more better than that of my contemporary direct current, right? You see, alternating current is produced through the electrical passage created by generators that are producing rotated magnetic fields. These rotating magnetic fields constantly change their directions, which means that every time new voltage, new current is produced. This is the alternating nature of my current, the current I invented, as compared to that of my contemporary, which has a constant current, right? A constant voltage. There are a number of drawbacks of such a current which is totally constant. In my case, in my alternating current, you don't need to build transformers in every small distance just for transmitting electricity, right? Because in my case, you can transmit electricity to very large distances without the need of transformers, with kilometers of distances. Why? Because you can easily modify the voltage. This modification of voltage reduces the electrical loss of electrical energy, loss of heat energy at the same time. So it's really cost effective. It's really versatile, right? This nature of alternating current. And anyways, if they're really talking about wars, I'll just state you a simple fact. My contemporary, his own company, General Electric, adopted the use of alternating current, right? There's no war in it. It's already a win for me.
Thank you, Tesla. So, Mr. Edison, I have the same question for you. If you want to elaborate further on the question, or give some counter arguments to Tesla.
Talking about direct current, it was more simpler and reliable technology of the time. And it was also the mainstream idea where most of my inventions were built upon it, and I had most of the patents based upon the principles of direct current. While AC requires complex transformers and other equipment that adds to the expenses, it is also hazardous where I had to demonstrate it by electrocuting an elephant, which was very cruel. I mean, who wrote the script?
Thank you, Edison. Well, you both are, famous scientists, well, most celebrated and have countless inventions. So, probably for me, the question arises that what is your process for inventing? How do you actually come up with this thinking of having such a marvelous product? So, I think I'll go with Mr. Edison first for that.
See, I was always a vigorous experimenter. I would iteratively experiment, observe, make changes, and document those changes in my notebook. I did not fail to invent a good bulb 10,000 times. I haven't failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Thank you, Thomas. Mr. Tesla, the same question.
So my methods of doing a research was apparently to visualize my ideas and put those ideas into a proper frame by designing them on a paper thoroughly and extensively. Try to understand what are the flaws in my design. What can I do to make my design better before I go to building the actual prototype, right? Because that is the final step I take before to perform experiments, right? So once I'm done with the prototype, I usually do vast number of experiments on it and modify my prototype as well, so that I can get a large number of data to understand how the values are fluctuating. So I'm really against the idea of the use of fossil fuels for the production of electricity. There's no point in doing it. That's why I came up with the idea of free electricity. I did a proper research on it. Our environment, it consists of particles, right? These particles can be used effectively to transfer electricity from one place to another. There is no need for using wires for this purpose, for using fossil fuels for this purpose.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your enlightened answers. I think the war of the currents, the AC versus DC argument, was probably the biggest scientific rivalry that occurred during the 19th century. And it does make one wonder who actually won the war of currents. As we see that Edison's control of the current trade loosened, the adoption of Tesla's idea of alternating current was increased. So, it does actually make one wonder. I leave that to you to decide. So, leave your answers down in the comment section below. And now, before you go, a bonus question for you all. During the peak of your rivalry, we saw that Tesla's lab caught fire. Mr. Edison, do you have any opinion on that? Or, what are your thoughts on that?
I think for any scientist to lose his work for even a temporary period is extremely tragic. Such events only have a negative connotation towards their progress.
Okay, thanks for your response, Mr. Edison. Mr. Tesla, the man himself, what are your thoughts about that? How did that affect your career and the whole trajectory? What do you think was the biggest effect of that fire?
So that incident really cost me a lot. I lost all the research I had done. I lost all the proper documentation I had. All the prototypes I had built for the experiment. And I also lost all the fundings for this project, for these experiments. I was on the verge of bankruptcy. But there was one thing about me, I never gave up. I redesigned everything. I started from scratch. I built my prototypes again. I did my whole research again. And I guess who benefited the most from this incident? I wonder.